Hi everyone, thank you for being here today. My name is Sam Bergstrom, and today I will be talking about COVID and food insecurity. Before I begin, I wanted to thank my faculty advisor, Charlotte Cote, who is a professor in the American Indian Studies Department at UW, as well as my site supervisor at my internship, Kristen Klasnick. So to begin, when COVID began over a year ago, it completely changed a majority of people's everyday lives, including mine, um, like their jobs, their housing, their health, as well as their ways to obtain food and the food insecurity of their families. Um, this has been seen before in previous pandemics in changes to food systems and how people get food, including the ability to produce that food under the pandemic, as well as access to it like grocery stores, which brought me to wanting to know more about why that is and how we can do something about it. My research question for this is, what are opportunities and challenges to ensuring food security to communities during a public health crisis? I did this through working with a local housing organization called Solid Ground that provides families um, housing when they were previously homeless and providing them homes, food, and other services. For Solid Ground, I worked with Seattle Public Schools to deliver daily breakfast and lunch to the kids living in this community. There were about 120 that we would bring food to every day. And I got to know them, seeing them every day, which was really nice. As well, I helped out at the food bank that they have once a week there to provide additional groceries. The food bank was something that had already been in place before COVID, um, and I think their resources increased during COVID. And the food delivery was not there before COVID, but was in response to the children in the community not being able to access breakfast and lunch like they normally would when they go to school in person. Based off that work, I did a literature review and a survey of 24 of the families that I had worked with from Solid Ground to find out their opinions on how food insecurity changed since COVID and if they had seen any changes in resources being provided. From my results, I found that while there were some minor shifts, the families living at Solid Ground did not show any drastic changes in increasing food insecurity during COVID, which can be seen in the first two graphs I have here under results. The first figure is showing how much did you worry about getting enough for your food for your family each day. Some of the responses were frequently, never, rarely, and sometimes. There's a good mix that I have there. And then the second question was if that changed at all during COVID. And there weren't many changes. Frequently, never, rarely, and sometimes in the before and during were pretty similar. As well, in my third figure I have here, the question of have resources changed at Solid Ground since COVID began? The majority of answers were either somewhat increased or increased a lot. I believe this trend was found because these families were already part of an organized program, Solid Ground, that provides food, like the food bank, and the daily breakfast and lunches in response to COVID. While this was good news for the families at Solid Ground, this is unfortunately not the case for a majority of people in the rest of the country, as well as the rest of the world, really. Most people are not a part of an organization like this that can provide resources. So when COVID hit, they did not have immediate access to emergency food or possibly any access at all if they're not in a place like Seattle that has lots of organizations that does work like this. So from gaining this knowledge from my research on what worked well at Solid Ground, there was a chance to prepare these resources for a greater amount of people in the future if there were another emergency situation like a pandemic. So that is what I did for my research, and thank you for being here.